Hello everyone, and welcome to this live Q&A hosted by the Cleft Lip and Palate Association on the subject of bullying and discrimination. It's open to everyone in the CLAPA community. Thank you to our funders, the National Lottery Community Fund and Smile Train, for enabling this event to happen. My name's Bronwyn. I am a CLAPA volunteer. I have been for 3 or 4 years now, and I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate myself, and I'm currently volunteering with the Cleft Plus Plus Mentors for Children and Young People. Today I'm joined by Rhiannon, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon. I've been a CLAPA volunteer for about 5 years now. My eldest daughter was born with a unilateral cleft about 10 years ago now, and I'm also a secondary school teacher. We'd also like to welcome Ashley and Catherine, who are going to be answering your questions tonight. Ashley and Catherine, I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves.
Catherine, you can go first.
Oh, thank you. So my name's Catherine Nutt. I'm a clinical psychologist and I work at Broomfield Hospital in Chelmsford. So I've been working at the hospital for about 10 years across various areas of clinical health and working with visible difference, but have been leading the cleft clinical psychology team there for the last 18 months. And this is my second CLAPA event.
My name is Ashley, and I'm here today representing Kidscape. Kidscape are a bullying prevention charity. We've been around for nearly 40 years, so quite some time. In fact, we're the longest running bullying prevention charity in the UK. Celebrating a big birthday next year. It'll be 40 years next year. We provide practical support, advice, and training for children, young people, families, and organizations, those who are impacted by bullying behavior, working with all young people, there to provide workshops around resilience, assertiveness, and confidence. We also have a parent advice line service, which is there for us to kind of listen and signpost to other organizations or give advice or signpost other pathways that might be able to help. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us today. We're also looking forward to hearing from James, who is a member of our Children and Young People's Council, and will be sharing some of their experiences with us later on in the Q&A.
And thank you to everyone who submitted a question in advance too. If you do have a question whilst you're watching, if you pop it into the comments, someone from CLAPA will respond either directly to you or pass it on to us. We've had a lot of interest on this topic, so we'll do our best to answer everybody's questions. However, if there are any questions that we don't get around to answering, we will try and get back to you in the chat feature after the event.
Right, I'd say let's get on with the questions now. So the first question says, I'm a new mum looking to start joining baby groups with my daughter who was born with a cleft lip, and I'm nervous about people's comments. What can I do and how do I respond?
Am I right to jump in? Yeah, this is a really common thing that we see within the cleft team, because obviously we have parents across the lifespan dealing with these sorts of things, and it's really hard as a new parent anyway, kind of going out and getting yourself out of the house and joining new groups and things like that, and then something which then you might be feeling kind of worried about already, and then you're sort of out there and anticipating that people kind of might notice, might ask questions. One of the things that we talk about a lot, which is something that comes from Changing Faces, is an approach called explain, reassure, distract. And it's just a way of having a really easy way of responding to questions, anticipating that people will be curious, that people do notice, and that those questions come from that curiosity, nosiness, and so that's the explain part. They come from concern as well, and wanting to know if everything's okay, so that's the reassure part. And then the distract part is just about taking back control of that conversation. So having that sort of rehearsed answer, being able to kind of say, They were born with a gap in their lip. They're doing really well. They're kind of gaining weight, or we've got our operation date. And then distraction, oh, how are you getting on? Like, what's their sleep like? Something which just changes the topic back to something much more neutral and about kind of life as a new parent generally. And we find that can just really help with feeling a bit more confident in those situations, but also kind of building up to things. So maybe finding a friend that you could go with to that first thing, or your co-parent to go to something, or it might be a sister or friend, anybody that just make that feel a bit more comfortable, and building up maybe to go into a new group on your own, if that's possible.
Great, thank you. Should we move on to question 2? Did anyone else want to jump in for question 1? No. Question 2, I think my child is being bullied, but they won't talk to me about it. I think they're worried about how I might react, but I just want to help. Can you suggest how to get them to open up?
I can take this question. I think first of all, it's important to acknowledge that something might be happening. And if you've tried to have those conversations before, it might be looking at other ways that are more comfortable for your young person to kind of share what's going on. So it could be writing something down. It could be actually using text message to have that conversation. So removing that kind of that sense of that we're right in front of that young person, or removing eye contact as well. So it's exploring other ways of them being able to open up to you. They're going to be, I think sometimes there's a reluctance to open up because they are very intuitive and they're very aware of the stresses and everything we're going through as parents and carers. So it's about creating those opportunities for them where they feel safe. And the question kind of for me is identifying that young person doesn't feel fully safe just yet to share and to open up. So it's about creating those opportunities where they do feel safe, and calm. And that can be, if house is an environment which isn't the right place, it could be going for a walk or going for a drive, or sometimes it can be late at night, sort of just laying next to each other where there's not so much distractions of mobile phones and other things going on, and just checking in, and being mindful of body language. If they don't open up in that moment, I would say keep creating those opportunities to talk. It might be looking at other resources or other kind of avenues that they could use to help them kind of discuss or share with you what's going on. Like I said, it might be writing a letter, it might be drawing a picture, something like that, which is going to initiate that kind of that open conversation. Yes, and I think, and just to reassure them that that they can talk to you about anything. It might be that, yes, that they're kind of they're worried about what's going to happen next. So I think transparency is really important with this as well, and going at their pace as well. So asking them what they want from you, how are they wanting you to speak to the school, or how would you like them to kind of sort of approach this? So essentially sort of almost putting them in control of what's gonna happen next, which will be comforting for them. And the last part of the question is, that you just want to help. I think it's important that we really do reiterate that to our young people, so they hear that, rather than sort of worrying that how we're going to react, or that we haven't got time to kind of sort of to listen. I hope that answers the question. There was quite a lot of questions within a question, but I hope that answers it.
Yeah, I was just going to add with that, in terms of them worrying about how you might respond, that sometimes it's you can kind of get them to talk about if something was happening, or if something was happening to a friend, what do you think would be a good way to respond, or even kind of books that might have something about bullying in, like, oh, do you think that was a good way that responded? Is that how you'd want me to respond? Or is that what you think that the parent should have done in that situation? Or if there's things happening with friends, things like that. And as Ashley is saying, kind of creating, it might be creating opportunities if there's another parent that they might talk to, or an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, or a sibling. So yeah, kind of also allowing it to be okay that maybe it would be somebody else that they might open up to initially, and that's all right too.
Yeah, thank you both for that. So if everyone's okay to move on to the next question. My little brother was born with a cleft lip and palate and is getting bullied at school because of how he looks and sounds. Who can I talk to about this, and what can I do to stop this?
I guess kind of carrying on a bit from what I was saying just before, that it might be that that it's the sibling that either they open up to, or the sibling that's noticed something happening at school. They might feel a bit more comfortable. So I think, kind of depending on the age of the sibling and the younger sibling, having a conversation with them to start with, about what's happening and what they want to happen, because as Ashley was saying in the last question, like, it's really important to create that safety, and that might be the first person that's aware of it, and kind of not wanting to to make a situation where that younger sibling is not opening up and talking about it. But then also making it really clear to them that it is important to keep them safe, and it's something that shouldn't be happening, so that you would want to share it with another adult, with somebody maybe at the school, with a parent, in order to look after them, but trying to get them on board with what do you want us to do, and how, and who do you want, which adult do you want me to go to, so that they still feel they've got some choice and control in what's happening.
Yeah, perfect answer. And I think actually it kind of highlights that vital role of that older sibling as well, because actually what we do know is that young people are quite often going to turn to someone sort of closer in age, and actually having parent and carer involved and young people suddenly provides a very kind of like a supportive team, which is really important when dealing with a bullying situation like this. We can feel very alone. And suddenly we've got a team of family around us who are wanting to kind of support us and help us through this. And exactly, I think going at their pace. Is there a staff member within that school, or a teacher within that school that that person who is receiving the bullying behavior, who's being targeted, is there someone that they have a rapport with? And that might not always be a pastoral lead or that safeguarding lead or that mentor. It might be someone else within that school that they have a kind of, that they feel is that trusted person. And then it would be reaching out to that school and having those initial conversations, sharing exactly what's taking place and what's happened. And it might be that older sibling is really crucial in kind of sharing that information, and as much information that you can share with the school as well. So you're working in collaboration. So the type of bullying, where it's taking place. So then that response from the school can be really swift. But yeah, I thought it was a perfect answer.
Thank you both. The next question is, it probably leads on to what we've just been talking about actually. What is the best way to deal with a school that is not handling a bullying case of a child with a cleft with the severity that it deserves?
We're both being very polite. You can go first, Catherine.
I mean, it's I guess kind of starting from the point of sort of escalating it through. So it might be if you've spoken to the class teacher, but they're not responding appropriately, then speaking to maybe kind of head of year, or the head of pastoral care, or the head of the school. So sort of working out who might be the next person to speak to if you feel that the person that you've had that initial contact with is not responding kind of appropriately to that. And I think it's sort of remembering also that you can get support from the cleft team. So this is something that we will quite often be involved with if a school isn't responding appropriately, to give them some education, think about what adjustments might need to be made and what education the rest of the children in the school might need about responding to kind of difference and things like that. So sort of seeing it as that the school might need some support, might not know how to respond and deal with and manage this, and feeling that you can kind of reach out and get some advice and guidance from other organisations about how to manage and respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just highlight Kidscape's parent advice line as well. We receive a lot of calls similar to this question, and we can provide you with support and template letters, and also we have an escalation ladder, so it will talk you through those processes, what to be sort of mindful of, what to expect. But absolutely, it's kind of, I would say that it's always really best to try and work in collaboration with that school as much as you can. So and following their sort of their procedures as well. So it be looking at policies. What happens if you aren't sort of happy? It might be that you find yourself on a complaints sort of pathway. So you would follow that through the school as well. But it would be reaching out to head teacher. Then beyond that would be governors. And then what we're looking at is what we refer to as beyond the school gate. So looking what other kind of sort of avenues you can explore. So it could be local authority, or it could be Ofsted, Department of Education. So there's all those sort of possibilities if we really feel that we aren't getting the response from from the school that's expected.
And I guess alongside that, making sure that you're keeping a record of what the bullying is and what the responses have been, so that you have got that trail, as well as Ashley says, to then be able to kind of escalate things.
Yeah, I think it can be really frustrating if you're sort of not getting anywhere with them and like the bullying is continuing, because I know that's something that actually happened to me while I was in secondary school. But in the end, I think it was my mum like rang the school or something and was like, we need to kind of like educate them a little bit more, I guess, in terms of like how it does actually affect me. Because I think some of it is just due to a lack of understanding on their part of like how big of an impact this can actually have. So I think definitely a bit of education in there is quite useful, but yeah, don't be afraid to escalate it if you're not getting it sorted, definitely. Is there anything anyone else wants to add on that? No? So the next question, I'm worried about my son who was born with a cleft having a mobile phone, as I'm concerned about bullying on apps. Do you have any recommendations for keeping him safe?
Yes. um, I think now a lot of the applications, and I would say those most common applications like Snapchat and Instagram, TikTok, depending on the age of the child, and I would say a conversation should happen prior to this as well. Quite a lot of these applications allow for parent accounts as well, so they can assist and support and monitor those accounts. And I don't like to use that word too much, because it's about, we want to give sort of management, we want to give independence in the online world, but it's there as a sort of a support if and when needed. And I would say to go through those apps together and look at kind of what those privacies and safety settings allow you to, and what kind of sort of safeguards you can put in place, because actually there's a lot more that we can do to kind of make those applications safer to use, and you can create quite safe boundaries within those applications. However, those privacy settings, those safety settings, they're not always going to be sort of 100% in kind of preventing everything. But I think it's really important to check in first, see how that app can keep you safe. And then it's your choice if you want to be on it or not. I know there's a lot of pressures to be on everything, but actually if it's not working for you and if you don't like it, you don't have to be involved. And sometimes that can be a stronger decision to make. I say that as an adult who's not really on social media at all, so I'm coming at a place from that I sort of stepped out of it quite some time ago, but I know that it's a fundamental part of young people's lives. Um, but I
That's
think,
it. I think when they're really keen to be on it, that's you're in a good negotiating position at that point to kind of say, okay, well, this would be the agreement. Like, if you want to be on it, this is what, how much involvement I'm going to have, and what oversight I'm going to have of things to make sure that I can keep you safe, and make sure that you're not being exposed to anything. So kind of, get that agreement in early on, whilst you've got that kind of negotiating position when they're really keen. And then, just like with everything, trying to keep that open relationship where you're able to just talk about things and what they've seen online, or what they've received, and how that felt, and how they experienced that. So trying to kind of be interested and have those conversations with them.
yeah, just to add to that, I think it's really important. A lot of the questions we ask is, how was school? How was your day? And actually building in conversations around the online world, so that suddenly becomes a normal part of conversation, is really important. So, because it's almost like there's a dual sort of world, two worlds taking place at the same time. So it's important to be inclusive of the digital world, so that becomes just as normal part of conversation as kind of sort of real life school, if we refer it to that.
Brilliant, thank you both. We're just going to take a very short break from the questions to hear from 14-year-old James, who is going to share his own personal story with you, and then we'll get back to the questions.
Hi, I'm James. I'm 14 years old and I was born with a cleft lip and palate. The types of bullying I've received in my time at school, things like name calling, just so many various names that aren't necessary, from people that have no idea what it's about, and gestures as well. People doing things like this with their lip and fingers, and basically they don't know what they're doing because they think they're funny just to get a laugh out of their mates, but they're not. And it does make me feel sad, but then as time does go on, it gets easier to cope with because all these words don't, signal through you as much. So I've been getting bullied fairly recently, over the past, 8 months to a year. Not just because of my cleft lip, but for other reasons too. But the fact that I've got the cleft lip and palate doesn't help, because these bullies know that I'm different to them, that there's something different about me that is wrong. And the thing is, they can be idiots, and it is hard to know you're always going to get bullied. There's no stopping that. But as time goes on, it will get better, and it will be easier for you. So the way I'm resolving these kind of bullying issues right now is by noting everything down in pen and paper for evidence to say that it's there, so your teachers know, your parents know, and hopefully your parents have contacted your school or whatever you're getting bullied by, or where is, like, your parents have contacted the leader or teacher or whoever running the place to make them aware of it, and they can keep watching it. Like I said before, it's better to have everything written down that you've experienced, because without it, it could be a whole lot worse. The way I dealt with bullying was, well, the first time, it could be a misunderstanding. They could just be asking what a cleft lip / palate is, and like, I don't you don't mind explaining it to them because they might not know what it is. But then if they do it a second time, that's when you start to get a bit worried that they could lead to bully you. Then at the fifth time they've done this, the fifth time they've made fun of your neck or nose or whatever, or your teeth, for example, then I'd suggest that's when you tell a trusted adult or a trusted friend, like a teacher or a parent, because that way these people are aware that they're kind of being watched over by a person of higher power of such, and know that they're getting bullied, basically. So the tips I have for people with cleft/palate that get bullied by their peers is just ignore it. Because the amount of times I've been bullied and gotten really annoyed or upset by it, it just keeps getting worse because bullies retaliate. They rely on retaliation from their victim, and if the bullies don't get a reaction or anything like that, they'll realise that this person ain't worth bullying, and they'll just leave you alone. And also, again, tell someone you trust, and then also just simply don't worry about it, because if you don't worry about it, it will be a lot easier for you, because people bully for so many different reasons that it's so hard to count. But if you just don't worry about these people that are making fun of you or bullying you, you just get on with your day. You should be done with it.
Sorry, Rhiannon, you're on mute.
Yeah.
I always do that. Just a big thank you to James for sharing his very rather inspiring story there. We'll get back to the questions now as well, if that's okay with everybody. The next question is, I've been getting some horrible comments from strangers on my photos on social media. What can I do about this?
I can take this. I can take this question. I think it kind of sort of links to the previous question, when actually there's a lot more control we can have now over who can see our content, who can comment on our content, who can be involved. And if you are receiving negative comments, what I would do is I would say is to certainly use those kind of additional superpowers online where we can block and mute and report. And I would report those comments straight away. And then you can block those accounts. It's also looking at the kind of the privileges within those applications. So it could be that actually you decide that only 5 of your best mates are going to have that privilege to be able to send you direct messages or comment on your videos or comment on your photos. And that way suddenly eliminates those strangers being able to kind of sort of say negative things. And again, it's a way of, what we're not saying there is you can't be on it and don't be on it. We're actually making that environment safer and enjoyable for those young people to use. That would be my advice, and make sure you're reporting it. Similar when you get a spam email, we can sometimes delete it. It's really important that you report it, because what happens is that's then sent through to the moderators, and they'll start to kind of build a profile of all these negative comments being shared, and quite often it might be that they then block that account entirely from that platform. So you're doing your little bit as well of making that platform that bit safer by bringing the awareness of those negative messages from that account.
Yeah, and I think, and just being aware of who you follow as well, and kind of thinking about kind of there's lots of inspirational people and accounts and things. So yeah, just kind of thinking about that, and as Ashley's saying, that's links obviously also to who you're friends with, and making sure that you're surrounding yourself with kind of more positivity, and thinking about how you're using social media and what it's bringing to you, making sure that it's not anybody saying whether you can use it or not use it, but is it bringing joy to your life, or is it bringing not like the opposite of that? So just thinking about what you're getting out of it, and how you might get more of the things that are helpful to you and less of the things that actually aren't kind of serving you at all. And then also balancing that with kind of having real life contact with people as well that bring that positivity and help you kind of feel more confident about yourself, so that there is that balance.
And just to add to that, I know that I've kind of talked through what you should do, but if you can go onto the Kidscape website and you can type in app settings, game settings, and there's lots of information there where we can kind of talk you through implementing those changes and those safeguards. Or it might be that we kind of signpost to another organization which has sort of supportive videos, if you're a visual learner, that way as well, watching a tutorial in how to turn off comments and turn off other aspects of to make that app safer, or more of an environment that young person wants it to be.
Because I think just understanding that social media and that world, that people behave differently than they do in real life, and that you do have these kind of serial trolls and people that it's not representative of how most people out in the world will deal with you and respond to you and treat you. So you can kind of get very skewed perspectives on things, so it's really important to remind yourself of that.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you both. If there's nothing left to add from that question, we've just been asked one on Facebook actually. So my daughter, age 8, has told me it makes her feel angry when other children ask about her lip. She's previously made me feel really proud with her response, but has recently received some mean comments. How can I encourage her to respond to others?
And I think it's really important to allow children especially to be able to respond differently at different times, it's great and really useful to kind of encourage that being able to respond and that kind of positivity, but also to allow them to have days where they decide that they're going to ignore something or they're not going to respond. And sometimes that's the right approach with certain individuals. I think kind of coming back to the approach that I mentioned in the first question, the explain, reassure, distract technique, it's helping them maybe understand the difference in where that question's coming from. If that question is coming from curiosity, even if it's nosiness more than curiosity, that question's going to come back round. If we just ignore it or say I don't want to talk about it, then that curiosity or that concern is going to still be there, and people will either make up something about what's happened, or they're going to keep asking, or they might become unkind. If it feels that the kind of it's not a curious question, it's coming from unkindness, and I think responding to it more down the kind of bullying lines of things, and letting an adult know that it didn't feel comfortable the way that somebody asked about something, or the way that they responded. But trying to help your daughter in this situation remember all the times where it has come from a nice place, or they've had good responses, or they've been able to respond well to that, and that this is just a one-off situation, and probably is a developmental thing at that kind of age. Children are kind of becoming much more aware of that being different to kind of other children, and so anything to build her confidence, her self-esteem, and feeling good about herself, and that the cleft is one tiny part of who she is, but she's got lots of other things, so that she's not kind of focused on that thing, and is less anxious about people asking those questions.
Does anyone mind if I just jump in a second? My daughter's 10 now, so she went through something very similar, year 3, year 4. As Catherine said, it does seem to be a developmental thing. The questions that she got seem to be from a place of curiosity more than anything, such as, have you bumped your lip? What's happened to you? And my daughter was coming home and talking about it, and we've always said to her, the best way to kind of kill that curiosity is to talk about it in a very matter-of-fact, scientific way. And kids that age just take that as verbatim for the most part. They're very much like, oh, okay, and then they kind of carry on with their lives. She was lucky that that's as far as it went, but obviously if she does feel kind of emotional about it, or she feels that it's coming from a place of unkindness, to obviously speak to the class teacher and to you. We also got a daily journal for our daughter around that age. And we spend kind of like 5-10 minutes just before she goes to bed talking about the good things about the day, any kind of tricky things that she went through, and how we might kind of deal with that. And she seems to really enjoy that. She now kind of journals by herself before she goes to bed. And any tricky questions that have come up in her day, whether cleft related or not, seems to have really kind of helped support her through, you know, what will probably be a testing time in a couple of years when she moves to secondary school. So that's just my personal experience of having a daughter of similar age.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that. I think, fantastic advice, and I think it's almost it's very similar to what Catherine was saying. Feeling equipped in that moment, so having those those responses, and maybe those rehearsed responses, and they can be quite transactional in their response, and also to be aware that it might be 10, 15, 20 times that you're kind of having these conversations that day. um, I thought something that James did an incredible job in the video of explaining is that he talked about being very open about his cleft, and then what was happening, it was kind of sort of stepping into beyond curiosity into bullying behavior, where it was suddenly I was getting asked daily about these questions, and I think there is a very fine line between curiosity and something that is stepping into bullying behavior. And he did a very good job of explaining that there was an intention behind it, and actually if it's causing hurt, then we should be speaking up about it. So yeah, I was just going to add those comments, and I thought James, yeah, did a fantastic job of explaining when something starts as curiosity and then sort of starts to step into bullying behavior.
Yeah, I agree with all of that really, and I think from my personal experience of when I was sort of going through this around a similar age to your daughter actually, I sort of it really did depend on the day, like Catherine said, how I wanted to respond. Sometimes I'd just completely just ignore it because I just could not.
Oh, I feel like we might have lost Brom. Oh, she's
Sorry, I think it froze for a second there. Yeah, I was just saying that it's something that I sort of used to respond to quite differently depending on the day. So sometimes I'd be able to ignore it. Other times it would sort of really get to me, and I'd sort of feel quite strongly about it, and that'd either mean going home and getting upset, or I'd be able to say something back in the situation as well. And that also kind of depended on who it was that was saying something to me. A lot of the time, if it was sort of like especially in secondary school, like with older boys and things like that, I kind of didn't really respond to them that much. But if it was more of these sort of curious questions, and like when I was younger, I would kind of just, like we've said before, just go at it with that simple explanation to kind of like reassure them, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, is there anything anyone else wants to add to that question? No. So this one's quite similar actually. One of the pre-submitted questions. I've noticed that people speak to me differently than others, and sometimes I feel discriminated and disconnected. How do I deal with this?
I think it's with this, it can be kind of helpful, like as you're saying, that trying to kind of get a sense of what's behind that, and whether it's coming from sort of a position of ignorance, or whether it's there's more kind of malicious intent. And I think sometimes being able to sort of explain something about cleft can help people to understand how that affects people. So being able to kind of do the sort of explain, I've noticed that it feels like you're treating me differently. I have got a cleft. This is the way that it affects me. These are the ways that it doesn't affect me. Yeah, have you got any questions about that? So to kind of give that opportunity, if you're sort of feeling brave enough and confident enough to open up that conversation, to find out if people are responding to you differently because maybe they just don't understand how that the cleft affects you, or don't know how to start a conversation or to ask you questions about that. That will, as I say, depend. Like if that's in a work environment, that might feel much more comfortable than, you know, if it's how people are treating you on the bus or something. So it is about being an environment that feels safe, and it might be speaking to other people. So, you know, if it's in social situations, kind of speaking to friends that you feel comfortable, like, have you noticed this? Do you think this is happening? Or again, if it's a work environment, speaking to your, you know, boss or supervisor or something about something that you've noticed, to see if they can help to sort of address it.
Shall I move on to the next question? Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking that could happen also in a school situation, and it might be some amazing young people are really confident and happy to. We've had young people doing kind of presentations at school about cleft as well, like as a really lovely way of educating people as well. So it's not for everybody, but it might be that as a parent you might talk to the school about how they might deliver that content if your child doesn't want to do that themselves, and then thinking with them about whether they want to be present when that happens or not, and whether that will create more focus. So it's, you know, it has to be the right intervention for the right child at the right time. But yeah, some of those things it's often about education.
Brilliant, thank you both. We unfortunately haven't got one of our panel tonight. However, she's been able to send in a response to the next question, which is, I have a cleft lip and palate and think my manager at work is passing over me for promotions due to my cleft. Am I protected from discrimination at work, and who do I talk to about this? So Samantha's kindly sent this response in. Yes, you are protected from discrimination in the workplace under the Equality Act of 2010. A cleft lip and palate, particularly if it affects your speech or hearing or is perceived to affect your appearance or abilities, could qualify as a disability even if it's been surgically treated. The law prohibits discrimination based on disabilities and requires employers to make decisions based on your qualifications, not on perceived limitations or biases. If you're comfortable to do so, speak to your line manager, ask them for feedback as to why you've not been successful in any promotion. This can sometimes help to clarify if this is a misunderstanding rather than being discriminated against. Alternatively, try to speak to your HR department to discuss your concerns if you don't feel able to speak with your manager. I don't know if anyone's got anything to add to that.
No, I think it's sort of linked to some of what we're saying in the previous question, that often it is about education and understanding, and if you feel able to, being able to have those conversations can be really helpful.
Yeah, if that's everything everyone wants for that question. Similarly with this question, we've had a response submitted by Samantha, who can't be with us tonight, but the question is, what reasonable adjustments should my workplace make for me? I don't like having my photograph taken and sometimes struggle to hear what's being said in our office. So Samantha's kindly said to us that your workplace should provide reasonable adjustments to help you feel comfortable and perform effectively. What you require will depend on your specific needs and job requirements. You can ask not to participate in photos. Employers should be asking for your consent to take your photo for business purposes. An alternative may be to choose a photo that you're comfortable with and ask for this to be used if it's needed as a requirement for your role. You should speak with your line manager and discuss the difficulties that you're having with hearing what's being said. Ask the team you work within if they can speak one at a time. If you can have devices to help, such as a personal amplifier or any other solutions that you feel will benefit you. It's always best to have these conversations and advise what you need, as they may not be aware of the situation or how best they can help you. I don't know if anyone else has got anything to add to that.
No, yeah, I'll just agree, kind of, yeah, have the conversations and ask, and if it's kind of speaking to occupational health or IT about kind of those different things. I think sometimes with often it can be easier kind of face to face, and I think where lots of things have gone online and telephone and things, that has like had a big impact on some people in terms of if they have got difficulties with hearing and understanding things, or with their own speech and being their speech being kind of intelligible to everybody else all of the time. So yeah, it's kind of thinking through those and knowing what helps you, and being able to feeling confident to express those things, that you are within your rights to express those things, and that those aren't things that stop you from being able to do your job, that is an adjustment that your employer should be making.
Thank you. The next question is, would someone who is being bullied or has been bullied in the past be able to seek support from the cleft team psychologists? What could they do to help?
Yeah, I think that was probably for me. Absolutely. So it's very much kind of a common referral reason that we have, both current bullying, and as I say, sometimes that will involve us liaising with the school or wherever that the bullying is taking place, liaising with the parents as well about how they can kind of support, and then if it's past bullying, again, I would say it's a really common referral reason for our adults is previous difficult experiences that they've had, that they maybe weren't able to talk about or get support for at the time, or didn't realize kind of how much it had impacted and affected their confidence until maybe they were older, and then struggling with kind of new situations or social situations because of earlier things that had occurred. Yeah, I think absolutely kind of seek that help. Some people might, their routine cleft care may have come to an end if they're an adult over a certain age, but you are still entitled to access your cleft team or the kind of nearest adult cleft service to you, and often we certainly do kind of video telephone appointments for people, because often the cleft team is some distance away from people, and it can be hard juggling it with work or childcare and things, different pressures that they might have as an adult. And you can access that. There's some information on the CLAPA website about accessing things as an adult, and you can go to your GP as well to ask for a referral back to the cleft team if you're no longer kind of being seen regularly. And then in terms of what we can do to help with adults, it's we can offer psychological therapy, and that's giving people a chance to kind of talk about and process things that happen to them, but then doing work around kind of self-esteem, confidence building, resilience, dealing with new situations. So get in touch.
Thank you. We've got a final question from the live stream. What are some hidden signs to look out for that my child or partner or friend might be being bullied?
I think it's, you're in kind of a good position when you know somebody well, that you can notice changes in their behaviour and confidence and things. I think it can be tricky for parents, particularly because children's behaviour changes lots as they grow, or they might be in a different class, or there's lots of different things that hormones and all sorts of things that will affect their behaviour at different time points. They're sort of not assuming that if they're kind of more withdrawn or spending more time in their room, or all of those developmentally appropriate things that they go through, that automatically means that they're being bullied or something's happening. So it goes back to sort of what we said earlier about open conversations and being able to kind of check in with them. But I think if they're not wanting to go to school, avoiding school, lots of kind of illness that doesn't necessarily, kind of stomach aches, things like that, which doesn't necessarily, you can't see the illness, but they're complaining of those things that might get them off, like to have the day off school and things. if they're very kind of tearful, if they're becoming more self-conscious, avoiding kind of photos, things like that, not going, like they've been on social media or things like that, and they're using those less, which might be a really appropriate and good thing that they're doing, but might be reflective that they're not having a good experience in that environment. If they avoiding for kind of on older people as well, avoiding social situations, not wanting to go out, do things that maybe they were enjoying before, stop doing their hobbies, those sorts of things. Avoiding new situations around new people because they're anticipating that they're not going to have a good experience.
I was just going to add, be mindful of impacted sleep as well. We know that in fact, what I would say almost all the cases and young people that we work with, sleep is impacted. And again, what we need to be able to deal with the situation is resilience. We need to, so again, it's just being mindful of that. We get indications through screen time, so if we are aware of that young person is accessing mobile device late at night and things like that, there is that. And we do know trying to get sleep at night is almost going into that environment, and again, that's going to weigh very heavy on that young person's mind, or waking up to messages and texts on the phone the next morning, on that device the next morning. And yes, we do know that young people will try to avoid certain situations, but I also sometimes it can manifest as actual kind of sort of headaches and stomach pains as well. And it's noticing those if you're about to drive to sort of an out of school activity, that suddenly they do become that kind of anxiety, that stress kind of manifests in those ways as well. I think it's again, it's kind of my I don't mind sharing, but I've had to the response is always going to be very unique depending on that young person. And my son actually becomes really helpful suddenly when he wants to ask me a question, or he wants to kind of check in. So he will suddenly want to help me unload the dishwasher or stack the dishwasher, and that's his way of kind of sort of being close to me to kind of say, I want to have a chat, or I need to talk to you about something. So it's not always those sort of big outbursts. I think also just being mindful of kind of sort of names and kind of sort of friends and changes in sort of friendship groups and things like that. It can sometimes, that can be an indicator that there's kind of sort of issues around sort of friendship and things like that. But I think yeah, everything was covered. And it was interesting that the question included those words hidden, because I think now, with especially the online world, we're very good at kind of tweaking everything that we want to share. So it's perfect before we do it. And so we're very good at hiding things. We only kind of share what we want to online. And I think actually all of us, and young people included, are very good at hiding things when they want to. So sometimes those indicators are very tricky to kind of pick up. So I want to just really reiterate that we're not failing our duty as parents and carers when we don't pick up on these things straight away. There might be a reason, and they might be very good at hiding these things from us, so we don't detect them. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, I was going to, when you said about sleep, also eating as well, can obviously affect that, whether that's kind of controlling what they're eating, or just, loss of appetite or comfort eating. So lots of different ways. And again, lots of those changes will happen as your child is growing as well. So it's not always, but as Ashley's saying, kind of being able to have different ways, like all the things we were saying before about being available, and whether that's with a child or an adult in your life, being available to kind of have those conversations, and being able to check in with other people in their lives. So, if that's friends, parents, friends of, their friends' parents, how they are in those environments, the teachers at school, have they noticed anything? Other grandparents or other kind of trusted adults in their lives. yeah, so.
And Rhiannon, something that you said, which I love, was that you talked about having a journal, and I think we also recommend that for parents and carers as well. So and almost having that kind of sort of diary built into your routine as well, because our lives are so, they're so busy, but making sure you are having that regular check-in, and also then kind of just making a note of how they responded, what the conversations were about. So you've got that kind of chronology. You can then look back and think. So there's us as parents and carers, we're then kind of sort of building our own picture around this as well. And sometimes we do need to have that thing in the diary to say, go and check in and make sure you are having that kind of that check in with them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, both. Before we start wrapping things up, is there anything that anybody wants to add that we've perhaps not discussed, or any additional advice you can give to the people watching?
I was just going to highlight the workshops that Kidscape offer that are free. They take place in person and online, and very similar to what Catherine was saying, there is a strong focus on resilience, assertiveness, confidence. We share what we refer to as the Kidscape ZAP toolkit, and the strategy that James was referring to, where you're not giving those words power, and we refer to that as a technique called fogging. So it's almost, you imagine a fog or a cloud or something around you that is your sort of protective force field, and what happens is these words, as they sort of hit that force field, actually dissolve and disappear. And what we do is we actually kind of have more of the control, because we take away the value, we take away the power of those words, and actually we're then in control of our reaction. And it's exactly what he said, which we can't control what they're going to say, but we can control our reaction to it. And quite often, bullying behaviour is there to provoke a reaction, and we can use that technique to disrupt that pattern. Bullying behavior is a pattern, and we can try these and utilize these different techniques to disrupt that. And quite often it can diffuse that situation or even prevent it from happening further. But it's very easy to sign up to the ZAP workshops. They take place every month. We have online and face to face, and as I said, they're free for young people to join, and there's an additional supportive session for parents and carers as well. So if you need us, we're here.
That's great. Thanks, Ash. And I think, just to kind of add to that, I think that is the sort of core thing. We know that bullying happens, that whether that's as children or as adults, that we will be exposed to unkindness out in the world, and that's an inevitability, as sad as that is. And so the one thing kind of we can tool our children with, or ourselves with, is that kind of resilience, and that self-esteem, and doing everything you can to kind of build up their confidence and their belief in themselves, and being able to see their cleft as something that is part of them, and something that is okay to talk about, and something that they don't need to feel any shame about. So that as and when those things come up, they have some skills to deal with that. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be protected completely, and if that if they are affected emotionally, that you've failed in any way as a parent or an individual, and that there is help available if that does happen, and being able to kind of make use of that and connect to for CLAPA, to mentoring, to the stuff with Kidscape, to their psychology services, to the school. Just ask for help if you need it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd just say as well, like, it can be quite isolating if you're being bullied, especially if it's not something that you really wanted to talk about, or even if you are, it kind of feels like you against the rest of the world sometimes. So I think definitely to just remember that you're not alone, as isolating as it can feel. And I think that's why it's so important to reach out, even if you're not necessarily wanting someone to help to put a stop to it, or anything like that, even if it's just to have someone to talk to about it, because dealing with the emotional impact of the bullying by yourself can be a really difficult thing to do. So just to kind of be kind to yourself, remind yourself that it's not your fault that you're being bullied and that you're not alone as well. And just, yeah, definitely reach out for that support in whatever form that may be.
Thank you so much, everybody. I think that's all we're going to have time for tonight, I'm afraid. If anybody would like to provide us with feedback, we'd be so grateful. There'll be a link to this in the chat. There'll also be a link provided to the CLAPA support services where you can access peer or parent support, CLAPA counselling service, and cleft mentoring service. If you've been affected by anything discussed this evening, please reach out for support through your GP or the local NHS cleft team, or email us at info@clapa.com.
Some very important thank yous before we go. Firstly, thank you so much to Ashley and Catherine for giving up your time to answer all our questions, and Samantha as well, who couldn't be with us tonight but still provided us with some answers. It's hugely appreciated, and I'm sure everyone else watching feels the same way. And also thank you to James for kindly sharing his personal story with us as well. Thank you as well to everyone who's joined us online. This video will be available on CLAPA's Facebook page straight away, and a subtitled version will be available on CLAPA's YouTube page as soon as possible. And of course, a big thank you to Rhiannon for taking your time out as a volunteer to host this evening.
Thank you to you too as well, Bronwyn. Lastly, we'd just like to say thank you to our funders, National Lottery Community Fund and Smile Train. I think it's been a really interesting evening, and I hope everybody has learned a lot. If we didn't get around to answering your questions in the chat, remember you can get in touch anytime, again at info@clapa.com, where CLAPA staff can help point you in the right direction. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's Q&A, and that we'll see you again at one of our upcoming online events in the future. From all of us, good night and have a lovely rest of the week and a great Christmas.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.